Hi there, and welcome to WPLN's Leadership Spotlight. Women's Public Leadership Network is a 501c3 organization dedicated to equipping women to seek public office across the country. We do these monthly leadership spotlights to highlight women across our network, their unique leadership journeys, and hopefully share and inspire the next generation. I'm very excited today to be joined by Liz Bowman, Vice President of Communications at AXPC. She is also the newest addition to WPLN's Board of Directors. And so we're really excited to highlight her, hear a little bit more about her leadership journey, what brought her to this point in her career, as well as to WPLN's board. So Liz, thank you so much for being here with us. And I just want to give you an opportunity to sort of introduce yourself, give a little bit about your background, and what you do currently.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today to talk to your group about women leadership. And as you mentioned, I am the Vice President of Communications at the American Exploration and Production Council, which is a national trade association in Washington, D.C. that represents the onshore upstream producers of oil and natural gas. So our member companies are the companies that brought this country from a position of energy dependence to energy independence by unlocking vast amounts of oil and natural gas in shale formations. And so now we support about 3.2 million jobs across the country and over $500 billion to our economy every year in value add. So I'm very proud to be representing this industry and the men and women that work in it. And I absolutely love my job communicating that story to the public and to various audiences.
That's great. Yeah, it's so great to work with associations. So many of people across our network, we're sort of reaching into those trade associations, industries, women with industry-specific backgrounds to try and pull them into public leadership because their insights and experiences are so valuable and needed at the table. And so it's great, that what you do is communicating with public leaders every day in terms of the impact of that industry and how policy impacts it. So we do want to explore, really how you got to your current position and what drives your personal leadership journey. Can you give a little bit about the positions that you held prior to this,
Sure.
both in and out of government?
Right. So I have had positions both in and outside of government. On the private sector side, I've worked for numerous trade associations, many of those in the energy and in the environment space. I worked for the American Chemistry Council, which represents the business of chemistry and producing some of the valuable products that all of our make our modern lives for about 5 years. And then I also worked for the American Petroleum Institute, which represents the full spectrum of the oil and natural gas value chain. And now I'm at AXPC here in the trade association space. On the private, in the public sector, I've worked in the U.S. Senate as a communications director for Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa. And then I also was the Associate Administrator of Public Affairs for the U.S. EPA in the last administration. So I ran all of the communications, public affairs, and outreach under the administrator of the EPA and also represented all of our associate and assistant administrators in their journeys in the various areas and managed a large team of press staff, both within the DC office and then widely across the country to make sure that we're getting our message out and talking about all the things that we were doing in the administration to protect human health and the environment and also be collaborative partners across the economy to make sure that we're doing that in a way that works together and is collaborative with the states, because states are really the frontline people in terms of protecting the environment. So those are some of the positions that I've had, and they've all kind of worked together in various ways to kind of get me to where I'm at now.
That's great. And, you mentioned the word collaborative a lot. I think that that's a great skill, an essential sort of function of folks in public leadership. But what other skills do you think are non-negotiable in leadership positions broadly and in the ones that you've held?
Right. I agree that collaboration is really important because no discipline, whether it's communications or advocacy or government affairs, can work in a vacuum. And so it's really important that everybody is collaborating and working together toward the same goal. I also think that it's really important to be flexible. Things come up, problems happen, especially when you're dealing with government officials and advocacy and press. And so it's important to make sure that you have a combination of being organized and planning ahead, but also being flexible to deal with situations as they occur. And I think that that is a good way to kind of move forward. I also think it's really important to make sure that you're listening to your leadership and that you understand the strategy of where you're coming from. And that helps you kind of figure out where you're going in terms of skills that are developing as you move forward.
Yeah, that's great. So we're working to build a network of support amongst women, especially women who identify as center and right-leaning women. Did any women in particular help you along your journey, serve as a mentor? And if so, what made them mentors to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that mentorship is an interesting word because when I first was coming up into the professional environment, people always talked about finding a mentor. And I think it doesn't necessarily have to be some official thing within a company. And I think it's more about developing relationships with women and having people that you can go to, whether it's through text or through email or just to catch up for coffee every now and then, who you can, you know, reach out to with ideas or with help, or you can be honest and vulnerable with and say, hey, I'm having this particular issue at my job, or I'm trying to figure out how to move forward here. What are your suggestions for doing that? And, you know, there's been a lot of women that I've worked with over the years that have been helpful. And so I don't want to necessarily say that there's been one or two, but I would say, you know, the one woman that has been consistent for me for like the past 10 plus years is this woman named Emily Lampkin, who I initially first worked for her husband, and then I met her. And she is just a staunch, strong advocate for women. She believes that women are strong and that they can do great things. And she's always one of the first people that I go to when I need help or advice. And she is someone that is very good at connecting parts and figuring out. She's a connector is the way that I would refer to her. And she will be like, oh, you want to work on this? This person is looking for someone to do this. And oh, you're really interested in these particular issues. You should connect with so-and-so. And she's just such an incredible support system and such a leader that I will always look up to her and appreciate all of her advice. And she also makes you feel good about who you are and your own skill set. And I think that that's a really important quality to have. I also have another woman that I've worked with throughout my career named Lisa Miller, who I worked with on other energy issues. And she kind of brought me into the energy and the media space. She's also somebody that's just whip smart and has great contacts and is someone that understands that women need flexibility and support. And so I've also really enjoyed working with her throughout my career. So there's just, I mean, I feel very blessed in the sense that I have had great women to look up to and to work with. And I hope that that will only continue and that throughout this organization and, you know, working with you and the other women at WPLN, that we'll be able to continue that network and bring more women into the fold.
Yeah, that's great. Do you think there's any particular challenges for women that identify as center right when they seek to be leaders, especially, you know, given today's political environment? It's sort of what we see in the media.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, to be honest, I think it's always a little bit challenging to come in on the right. I mean, I think that it's a lot easier nowadays. It depends, obviously, it always depends on, you know, where you live and the makeup there. And I think that sometimes it's harder for Republicans to come out and say that they are Republicans and they believe in center right issues. And especially some of them are considered controversial. And I think that there's been this inaccurate narrative that's often pushed on the left that women's issues are owned by the other side of the aisle. And I think that's absolutely cannot be further from the truth. I mean, all issues are women's issues. When you're talking about economics, you're talking about education, you're talking about job security, health, inflation. These are issues that affect everybody. And these are issues that are important to women. And one side of the aisle does not own a particular issue or narrative. And so I think that it's always really important that if you are going to run for office as center right, or that you are aware that you're kind of working a little bit on an uphill battle and that you have to be cognizant of that and make sure that you're getting your message out there and you're continuing to beat that drum and that you're proud of those issues and you're proud of your stance and you don't have to hide from those or feel bad about where you're coming from, because I think that there's a lot of women out there who agree with you that just may not be as comfortable voicing that. And that doesn't mean that they don't agree. It doesn't mean they don't support you. It just means that, you know, it's a little bit harder, but I also think that's why it's so important for women center right to come out and be willing to take that leap and to take those positions, because it's such a harder position to come from.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know through my work at WPLN over the last few years, you know, we oftentimes say things like, if not you, who?
Right.
Trying to ask women and pull them into this space. And as I mentioned earlier, pull them out of industries and to use their expertise in this space as well. So, you know, to that end, you came across WPLN. We had you at one of our events last year. We're so excited that you decided to apply and are going to be joining our board of directors. But what made you really want to be involved with our organization and with sort of continuing and putting the pedal down in this space and encouraging more women to get involved?
I mean, I think WPLN is a great organization and I'm very excited to be involved in. I think the reason that I wanted to join is because I've seen all the great things that y'all are doing. And I feel like you have really carved out a niche for yourself in terms of that voice and speaking directly to women about women's issues and showing that women that want to hold public office, that want to run, to be leaders in their community are not alone and that they have a support system out there. I think there's a lot of great organizations trying to encourage more women to participate in the public process. But I also think that WPLN has such a unique voice. And I feel like you all are doing such a great job of raising the profile, reaching women directly in their communities, identifying women leaders and giving them the tools and resources that they need to be able to run for public office. And I think that that's just such a noble mission. And it's something that I want to be a part of. I mean, I look around at my friend group and my women network in Alexandria, Virginia, and I see there's so many women that are they're the ones that are volunteering. They're the ones that are, serving on the school boards and, communicating with their different networks and joining their neighborhood groups. And I think these are the women that are natural leaders in their own communities, and they're perfectly suited to be able to continue to do not only what they're doing now as, moms and business leaders, but also to kind of do that in the public service arena. And so I think sometimes it just takes an organization to find those people and give them the confidence and the tools that they need to take that next step.
Absolutely. If you could give one piece of advice to the women that are looking to put themselves out there, or maybe haven't yet decided to put themselves out there, what would it be?
I mean, that's a hard question. And I think, who am I to be telling anyone to give advice? But I think what I would say is don't be afraid to ask for help. And I think oftentimes, we women can, and they do it all, but it doesn't mean that they don't want or need help. And I think it's always scary to take that vulnerable step and say, hey, I do need your help here, or I'd like to run for office. Could you help me? Or, hey, could you help me put signs in my yard? Or would you be willing to host an event? And I think whatever those things are that you need help with, I think women should not be afraid to ask for help, because there's no shame in that. And if anything, it's admirable to admit that you need help and to identify particular things that people can do in order to help you. So I guess that's what I would say in terms of advice.
I think that's great advice. Absolutely. I think women sometimes feel like they have to know everything and be 200% prepared before jumping in. And the reality is that candidates, men jump in all the time, half prepared.
Absolutely. And I was even talking to my friend about this the other day, because we were talking about, potentially doing new things or applying for a job, and it's, I think women's first instinct is, can I do this? Do you think I can do this? Whereas men, I can do it. I mean, it doesn't even cross their mind that they would not be able to do something or potentially need help or wouldn't be able to fill a particular role. And that's, I think, a really hard thing to overcome as a woman, is you can do the job, and you're confident you can do the job, and it's being willing to get out there and convince others that you can do it. It's just taking that next step, I think, is really challenging. It's hard for everyone.
Yeah. So what are you looking to do in the next phase of your leadership journey? Any experience or expertise you'd like to develop, things that you're sort of looking forward to?
That's a great question. I think I'm always looking to develop new skills and find new ways to expand my opportunities. As a communications professional, I've always, worked with the press and the media and have served as a spokesperson. But I also have learned in my current role, where we work with a lot of member company CEOs and our executives, that I've been doing more and more presentations. And I think that that's something that I'm really trying to hone in my skills on. I've done a lot of speech writing and work for other people to do that. But I'm slowly learning to be able to become a better presenter myself and to do more of those long form communications and presentations. And so I'd like to continue honing in on that skill and figuring out what is a way that I can continue to give like board level presentations and high level talks to executives and other leaders. So that's something that I think I'm definitely going to continue working on over the next year or so.
That's great. And I super appreciate you sharing that, because I think so many women watching this are going to be looking at you like, wow, she's, at such a great point in her career already. So I think it's always really important and exciting to hear that everybody's sort of on this constant journey, and always looking to add, and develop. And so through WPLN's programs, whether you are watching and you want to run for public office, or seek an appointment, or just develop within your own career, and be behind the scenes, I think we have resources and trainings that are available to you to be helpful. We're super grateful to have Liz join our board of directors, and help push this mission forward. And so I hope to any of you watching that if you want to connect with Liz Bowman at AXPC, you can reach out to hello@womenspublicleadership.net. We'd be more than happy to make any introductions. And if you haven't yet checked out our resources, they're online at training.womenspublicleadership.net, and follow us on all social media at WPL Network. And we will feature leadership spotlights from our other new board members this month of August. And we're so excited and grateful to you, Liz, for your time and for your service with this organization.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. See ya.
Bye.